And we're using mics because we're recording this so that we can also capture the strategic planning session afterwards. So we do need to use mics even though we're within talking distance of our candidate. So I'll call the meeting to order, and we do have a quorum. Lenora, do you need roll call or can you? Okay, thanks. And so it indicates that the introduction is by Superintendent Watson.
Okay.
Okay, that was very efficient. So I'll explain the process. This is Jennifer Vogel. I don't know if you want to make any introductory remarks because we'll be having a conversation in a second. And so just to let everyone know, so we're all on the same page, Mrs. Vogel had sent in an application. She had been asked, or in the course of the application, we had asked that 2 questions be answered. One is why you wanted to run for the school board for Missoula County Public Schools. And the second one is whether you'd be willing to run for retention when the seat becomes open in May. And so we have received her letter, which I think everyone's had a chance to see. And then we met, a group of leaders on the board met and came up with 5 follow-up questions, which we provided to you as well. So I think if it's okay with you, unless you have some preliminary comments or questions that you'd like to make, then we'll just go ahead and I'll check with everyone that they've read through Mrs. Vogel's application form. So because those 2 questions would have been included in the other 5, so we're good to go. So we'll just flip it over. And so the first question is, what skills and abilities do you have that would serve you and the district well in your role as a school trustee? And I'll let you know this system's weird.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very sophisticated.
I believe my skills and abilities touch back in my 9 years as a special ed teacher.
And I'll turn mine on. Why don't we introduce ourselves? I just realized I'm missing a huge component of this whole process. So if we want to start with Trustee Old Person at the end of the table, do you want to just jump right in, introduce yourself, and if you happen to be in a position where you represent a certain, we have a few people represent certain areas.
Hi, I apologize, I'm late. I'm Walina Olperson, and I'm one of the newer trustees, and I am K-12, and I have 3 boys at Russell and 1 at Sentinel High School.
Hi, I'm Heidi Kendall. I'm a trustee. My kids have graduated and moved on.
I'm Diane Lorenzen. I'm a trustee for K-12, and this is my 7th year on the board.
Hi, I'm Sharon Sturbus. I'm a high school trustee only. I represent Target Range and Bonner. So, and I was appointed, I've gone through this process too, so I feel for you.
Yeah, so we got to pick Sharon's brain about how to make the process less painful, and we appreciate your advice on that. I'm Marcia Holland. I'm the chair of the board, and I'm also the representative for Hellgate Elementary, which is one of our feeder schools, so I vote on high school issues.
Thanks. My name is Mike Smith. I'm a K-12 trustee. I also was originally appointed, except it was 10 years ago, so process, I forgot how it went, so it's been so long. I'm a K-12 trustee. I have a senior at Hellgate and another son who graduated 4 years ago.
Hi, I'm Grace Decker, and I'm a K-12 trustee also, and I'm in my 5th year on the board, and I have a son who's in 7th grade at Porter.
I'm Ann Wake, and I'm a high school trustee, and I'm sorry I'm late, but I had a flat tire, so. It wasn't fun. Represent the Lolo, Woodman School, and DeSmith.
Thanks. And if you just want to introduce yourselves just in a general sense, I'm happy to take that step back.
My name is Jennifer Vogel. I have lived in the Potomac area for going on 3 years this summer. We moved from Ohio, where I served as a special education teacher in a larger school district. At the kindergarten and preschool, we had about 580 students in kindergarten and preschool. And so I was the special ed teacher there. And we decided to move someplace where there was a lot more to look at. And so we picked the perfect spot in Potomac. And I am the special ed teacher at Potomac School, and I'm in my second year currently.
Thanks. And so now we'll start the interview. So the first question is, what skills and abilities do you have that would serve you and the district well in your role as a school trustee?
So in my 9 years as a special ed teacher, I have learned a lot about communication. I know that communication goes a very long way with students, parents, families, and the community. I'm, in my opinion, a very excellent listener. I'm a very quiet person, so I tend to listen and absorb instead of just speak whatever comes to mind, which sometimes can get me into trouble with my husband. I love to collaborate with team members, but I also love to have my own set of duties. As the only special ed teacher at Potomac School, I enjoy kind of being in charge of my own program, having my own caseload of students that I can fit their needs. But I also enjoy being a larger part of a team where the teachers can come to me at any time and say, I need help with this, and we'll work together to find a solution to the problem. I also feel that I bring a teacher's and a parent's perspective to a position like this. I have 2 sons at Hellgate, a freshman and sophomore, and they also went through a couple years at Potomac School, and in Ohio, they were at larger middle schools, so they felt very comfortable transitioning to a larger school like Hellgate. They've been able to fit right in, and they enjoy every single day there. They don't want to come back to Potomac School for any reason whatsoever. So I think that's, if you had anything else that you wanted to ask.
Anything? Nope. It sounds like everyone's very satisfied with that answer. So number 2 is, please describe what you see as the responsibilities of the superintendent and describe how you would foster a good working relationship with the superintendent.
I'm coming off of not very much experience. In my 9 years of teaching, I've stayed with school districts for a long time, so I've only met a very few superintendents. I understand, though, that they have the day-to-day responsibilities, the 1,000 things that pop up, but also the long-range goals. So that's probably an elementary understanding of what it means, and I understand that I'm on a huge learning curve. So I know that I'll be able to learn and absorb and grow as I move along. The one superintendent that stands out in my mind was in Ohio, and his name was Dr. Rusty Clifford. And so even our kindergartners knew who he was. He was very visible. He was the big red dog. And that's what they called him, big red dog. And he had very ruddy cheeks, and he loved that role. He would come in, we were the pirates, so he taught them all to arr, and it was really great how he'd get them all fired up. The teachers obviously knew who he was. The board members were very visible also. So I enjoyed that aspect of getting to know the superintendent more on a personal level as a human being, not someone who's, in an office all the time. So I enjoyed someone who was very visible and easy to talk to.
Any other follow-up questions at all? Well, Dr. Watson's on a bit of a learning curve too, because he's new to Missoula, although he's been in the district before, and he's been a superintendent over in Bozeman. So I'm sure, I think as we talked before, I'd be happy to, as would, Dr. Watson, meet with you and just kind of answer any questions you have, since it is a pretty steep learning curve, as we all have appreciated over the years. So Number 3 is, how do you approach your role as a high school trustee that represents several K-8 feeder schools where students attend the MCPS high schools? And you just described your son's experiences a little bit.
So as a parent, I enjoy watching them participate in all the different activities. We had heard about everything that Hellgate has to offer, and once they finally became immersed in flagship and sports and orchestra, it was just amazing what opened up for them. They've made friends, they've made good quality friends that I'm proud that my sons have stepped out on their own with those kind of skills and abilities to choose good friends. I see my role as a high school trustee as someone who I would like to be visible to the community. I don't know of very many parents within our Potomac families that know who the trustee is that would represent them. So I would like to be more visible, and I would like to communicate and open up that communication more so that they do feel comfortable to come to me if they have any concerns, something that I can bring to you.
So your position is Sealy Lake community, which is your larger community, and then Clinton as well. Do you have some connections there? Are you comfortable with those groups?
Before I became a teacher at Potomac, I also worked for the Child Development Center as a family support specialist. And knowing that I lived out in Potomac, they tried to assign families to me that lived in the Sealy Lake area. So unfortunately, I mean, it was preschoolers, but I do know my way around the Sealy Lake area. I know teachers there. We're in trainings all the time at Bonner. And I know some teachers at the Clinton area as well. So that's my only exposure so far.
Any other follow-up questions? Seeing none, we move on to number 4. What do you believe to be the strengths of the MCPS district, and what would you consider as areas to review or possibly change?
So as a parent, I love the communication that I'm getting, my emails especially. Even on the recent lockdown that happened a couple weeks ago, I got a call, a text, and an email all within the same 2 minutes. And then all of that again when everything was cleared within 2 minutes. And I love that because I'm all the way out in Potomac, my kids are at Hellgate, and I just, as any parent, I need to know that they're okay. So the communication is excellent for me. I understand that the environment with all the schools is centered around student learning. The students are a priority, and I believe that's exactly where the priority should be. And I think if their students are the priority, then everything else will fall into place. If the students, like for instance, I saw on the survey that some of this feedback from the staff was maybe a smaller class size. I know that would benefit the students, but I know that would also benefit the teachers. So I know those other things would fall into place too if the schools wanted to go in that direction. I love this idea of the survey. Unfortunately, I don't know if I maybe just skimmed through the emails and I missed it, but I did not have the opportunity to fill one out. And so I think that's on me. The communication tools, I think, are excellent. The planning and the long-range vision is always set in a good direction. The areas that to review, and I might already be saying something that you already do, so forgive me on that. But I like staff and I like board members who are visible and easily accessible. So if that's not something that you are already doing, then maybe that's an area that I could help bring to the table. I like a trustee that is approachable to families, someone who a family feels comfortable in talking to, and they're not going to get shut down right away. They're going to just sit and listen and have a voice for a while, and then trust that that person will communicate their concerns and then give feedback back to the family. So I also see that trust and transparency came through in the survey. And if there's any way that I would be able to assist with that, I'm happy to do so.
Any follow-up questions? I have one that's somewhat related. As trustees, we have a statutory obligation to go visit all of the schools in our district, and we try to get up to Sealy at least twice a year as well, but we don't normally stop in, because Potomac's not really in our district, we don't stop there. But would you have any problem being up in Potomac of at least attending one or two of those visits with the schools in the district? We don't all go. We just go when we have the opportunities to go, and I know you're working, so that may restrict your opportunities. So just wanted to let you know that's something that we do. Okay? Seeing none, then number 5 is, what is your understanding of your role as an individual trustee on an 11-member board? It's a big board.
So going back to what you previously said, I was hoping that the trustees had a chance to go around and visit the schools. They were highly visible in the school in Ohio where I was. We were actually made to memorize all of their names, so as staff. So, and our superintendent ran the new teacher orientation for 2 days, 8 hours straight. We felt like we had run a marathon. So, and he quizzed us constantly on who are the board members and why are they a board member. So it was intense. So I'm glad to know that you visit the schools. And fortunately, Potomac is on a 4-day week. So I have my Fridays off, most Fridays. Other times we have staff days and grant days. So yeah, I was hoping that a visit was in the works. So my role as an individual trustee, communicate and collaborate. Those are the first 2 things that come to mind. I'm a listener though, so it takes me a while to maybe process what's going on, especially with the learning curve that's kind of daunting right now. So, but if something comes up, I might think of something on the way home, or I might think of something at the next meeting. And that's just how I operate. I always joke with my kids that I'm blonde and special ed too. So it's gonna take me a little extra long. So I'm very eager to work towards any areas of improvement that you feel are priorities, and also becoming visible to the community and the families and the teachers and students that I would serve.
Any follow-up questions? I have just one. One of the complicating features of an 11-person board, where some of us represent feeder schools and others vote on all issues, is that even though there will be conversations where we as high school trustees can be part of the conversation, but we don't vote on issues that involve K-8 issues. Is that okay with you? I mean, that's the way we're structured, so I just didn't know if there'd been a conversation about that. Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, then all 5 questions have been answered. So the next subset of 3 is board discussion and direction. And so typically, unless there's some questions, the process we usually use is to have a motion that's seconded on the table before we have our discussion, so everyone knows what they're commenting on. So at this point, I would entertain a motion from any trustee. Trustee Lorenzen? Whoops, let me get it.
I move we appoint Ms. Vogel to the open District D seat on the board.
Any discussion by board members? Well, lots of time. I want to commend you for being so thorough in learning about our district. It is a very steep learning curve. Wait till you get to the budget and school financing. It's a fascinating conversation in a language that I think only Pat speaks. So, but anyway, any other comments? No. So then all those in favor of the motion to appoint Mrs. Vogel to the vacant position on the board, please indicate by raising your hand. And that is unanimous as to all trustees present. So welcome aboard. Now and just to keep this process, moving along. Item number 4 is that you'll be issued a certificate of appointment, and your oath of office would be administered by Pat McHugh, who is our business office supervisor, but he's also our district clerk, so.
Too late.
Well, we had talked, Rob and I and Jennifer had talked about getting together and trying to answer questions since this is all being recorded. So we just wanted to be sensitive to the scope of the questions you might have. So we did talk about that, unless you have some general questions. Okay.
Thank you. So we'll issue the certificate of appointment and administer the oath of office to you. And so just for background, Jennifer's been appointed by the board to fill the office of the MCPS High School Trustee from District D. Thank you for your willingness to serve. As an appointed trustee, Jennifer will serve as trustee until the next regular school election and until the successor is qualified. That's per state statute. That next regular school election is May 5th. The term of the position for the person elected on May 5th is 3 years. The certificate of appointment must be filed within 15 days after notice of appointment, which we'll take care of. And then to assume the trustee position, you must be qualified. To be qualified requires that you take the oath of office, so I'll administer that oath. If you could raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and the Constitution of the State of Montana,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity, so help me God.
and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity, so help me God.
Thank you. And then the chair and myself will sign the appointment.
So while Lenora is finishing up her side of the paperwork, what happens next is that Pat, as our district clerk, will go over the conflict of interest and code of ethics document that we all have to sign. every time we're elected or appointed to this position. And so it's a really good refresher course for the rest of us as well, to be reminded of what most of us signed last.
So we just listen, we don't sign.
Pardon?
We're just listening and then she signs.
Yeah, she's signing, but we all have had to sign this in the past, but it's really good to be reminded of what our ethical obligations are as trustees.
So thank you, and I'm sorry I didn't bring a couple copies for folks to follow along, but this is the Code of Ethics form, as Chair Holland mentioned, that the trustees have signed at the point of reorganization. So as a member of my local board of trustees, I will strive to improve public education, and to that end I will attend all regularly scheduled board meetings insofar as possible and become informed concerning the issues to be considered at those meetings. Recognize that I should endeavor to make policy decisions only after full discussions at publicly held board meetings. Render all decisions based on the available facts and my independent judgment, and refused to surrender that judgment to individuals or special interest groups. Encourage the free expression of opinion by all board members, and seek systematic communications between the board and students, staff, and all elements of the community. Work with other board members to establish effective board policies and to delegate authority for the administration of the school to the superintendent. Recognize and respect the responsibilities that properly are delegated to the superintendent. Communicate to the superintendent expression of public reaction to board policies, school programs, or staff. Inform myself about current educational issues by individual study and through participation in programs providing needed information, such as those sponsored by the Montana and National School Boards Association. Support the employment of those persons best qualified to serve as school staff and insist on regular and impartial evaluation of staff. Avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest and refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain. Avoid compromising the board or administration by inappropriate individual action or comments, and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law. To strive sincerely to build better relationships with one another and with the school superintendent, to vote our individual convictions and do what we can to destroy fractionalism on the board. Remember always that my first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of the students attending public schools.
Now Mrs. Vogel signs? Yes. Okay. And with that, you are a trustee of MCPS. Welcome to the board. And item number 6 on our agenda is public comment on any item. Seeing no one racing to, I guess, our other podium for right now, this meeting is adjourned and we'll reconfigure the room so we can move into our strategic planning.